and I'm admitting. Good morning, everybody. We are going to take just a minute to let everybody get logged on and get connected to the audio. I do want to encourage everybody to turn on their cameras if they are comfortable. The best way for us to get to know you is by seeing your name with your face and your company. So again, we would love to see you. Plus, that's just fun. We like to see everybody. So again, we're going to wait just a minute for everybody to get connected, and then we will get started. And just so everybody knows that they're in the right place, we are in the Women in Business Committee. So thank you all for joining us. All right, we're going to get started. Again, this is the Women in Business Committee. My name is Kirby Davis, and I am the Membership Services Associate for the Chamber of Commerce of the Palm Beaches. This is our part 3 of our diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we're going to be discussing a little bit of everything, but our main topic today is the inclusion portion. So today we have Michael Riordan, and I'm sorry if I said that wrong, Compass Director of Marketing from an early age. Michael knew that she had feelings that were not normal. In the 1980s, there were few resources for transgender people. In many cases, no one knew that transgender people existed. At the age of 10, she tried to express feelings of gender dysphoria to a family member, and the reaction she received convinced her to hide how she felt for 27 years. Today, Michael happily works at Compass Community Center and is in the process of transitioning from male to female. Unlike many transgender individuals, she goes by any pronoun and is keeping her birth name. She has a BS in communications and a master's in educational leadership. Michael is a firm believer that transgender people should live openly and proudly when it is healthy for them to do so, and advocates for equal rights and better mental health services for transgender people. And we also have Jackie Brown. Jackie is the Transgender Economic Empowerment Program Coordinator at Compass Community Center. In her role, she assists transgender people with achieving economic stability through career development. Jackie believes in extending compassion and understanding to each individual she meets. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I do want to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded, so please make sure that your microphones are muted and stay muted until asked otherwise. We will be doing a question portion at the end, but just so you don't forget them, please feel free to put them in the chat, and feel free to direct chat me or Michael or Jackie if you have any questions and do not feel comfortable putting them out to everyone. Again, and if you would, you can follow up with us in an email and we will make sure your questions get answered. And with that being said, Michael, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Kirby. It is a real pleasure to be here, everyone. Gonna share my screen, so give me just a second, and we'll get going. I'm gonna just do a quick little confession. I woke up with a little bit of a chest cold, and my voice is deep all the time, but today it's like extra, and I'm a little self-conscious about it. So bear with me during this difficult time in my personal history.
You're among friends.
I know. I actually see a lot of people. Hello, everybody. It's great to see you all. So let me see. I'm just pulling up, I'm sharing the screen. Everybody can see it, right?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you all for being here. When we were asked to do this for the chamber, it was really, we were very excited. I think that's the best word, to have an organization like the Chamber of Commerce ask us to talk on this topic, because it's very important. So what you see on your screen right now is Jackie and my's name and our email addresses. And please feel free to email either of us with any questions, anything like that. And if this isn't on the screen long enough, I'll put them in the chat by the end of the meeting. So we'll get into it, because I know it's a short meeting, it's early. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here again. So the topics that we're going to cover today are difficulties and discrimination that trans women face in the workplace. some of the things that you're going to hear are probably a little bit shocking and disappointing, but we're going to talk about them and get through it. The part that we kind of changed a little bit, I know that the chamber sent out like the 3 bullet points, and one of the things that we had in here were the roles that trans women can play in business. And when we were kind of working on this presentation and talking about what we were going to say, we kind of really we're like, well, human beings can do any role that they're qualified for. And so we kind of changed it to recognizing the reasons why hiring trans women would be beneficial for your business and any people, any trans people, really. And then we're going to talk about how to include all women. And I have all in caps. And we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. And as we get into this, we do trainings at Compass. We call it the cultural competency training. And I always say this is a safe space today. Please feel free to ask any questions that you would like. I know that there is going to be time at the end to ask questions, and I think that would be a good time if you wanted to unmute. But again, like Kirby said, in the chat, if you want to put questions in the chat, I've got my eye on it. We can answer some of them as we go along, or save some of them. And if there's a question that you have that you don't feel comfortable everybody knowing that you asked, you can direct message me, Kirby, and we won't say the names. We'll say what the question is, but we won't say who asked it, and then we'll answer it. So please let me know if you have any of that, any questions. So we will get into it, and I'm going to turn this part of the conversation over to my colleague, my esteemed colleague, Jackie Brown. Jackie, take it away.
So before I begin telling you about discrimination that transgender women face in the workplace and business, there are a few definitions that I think it's important for you to know before we proceed, because I will be using these words. And there are just 3 words. So the first is gender identity. And this is the gender one feels they are on the inside. And this gender identity can be the same or it can be different from what's assigned at birth. The next definition is transgender. So this is someone whose gender identity does not match their biological anatomy or the sex they were assigned at birth. For example, you can say transgender people, transgender woman, transgender man, etc. And the final word or definition that I need you to know is gender expression. So gender expression is the external appearance of one's gender identity. And this is usually expressed through someone's behavior, their clothing, the way they style their hair, possibly even their voice. And these expressions that they choose may not conform to socially defined behaviors. And these characteristics may be associated with what we deem as masculine or feminine. So to combat the difficulties transgender women face in business and the workplace, it requires a better understanding of the discrimination that these people can face. So there are opportunities for growth and diversity in businesses and workplaces that are often missed out on due to the lack of knowledge of these individuals. So these difficulties mainly are the hiring process and violations of privacy and personal choice, and centering around harassment. So what I mean by the hiring process, some individuals will present to your business and fill out an application. And sometimes employers will refuse to hire individuals because they don't know about this group of people and they don't understand this group of people. So some things that I hear is, what are they? Is it a he? Is it a she? Are they a transformer? How do we, address them? The next issue that some transgender women will face is employers do not know how to hire these individuals. So basically, a unique issue for trans people. Sometimes their application and their identification may not match the name that they're asking you to call them. It also the ID may not match the gender identity or the gender that we think that they are. And sometimes employers and HR personnel do not know how to navigate that legally. There's also at times a failure to recognize these individuals for the value that they can bring to an organization. And somehow, some way, when transgender people present for a job interview or in the workplace, there is basically a denial of their qualifications. Sometimes they're even turned down for roles because they're transgender. And if they are hired and brought on, sometimes they are given a salary that's a lot lower than others in the same role. And some of the staff may deem them as confused or incompetent simply because of their gender identity and expression. So violations to personal choice and privacy. So as I mentioned earlier about the name on IDs and the name that is being given by the individual, that seems to provide some employers with a level of uncertainty. So some employers will navigate this or react to this by refusing to use the name that the individual has chosen to be used, or even pronouns. So someone may present to you with the name Lewis, but they present to you and they look like, let's say, Laura. And their identification may have the gender marker of M. So some employers will refuse to address the person as Laura and refuse to use the person's chosen pronouns, which is possibly her, she, hers. Also, sometimes these individuals will endure derogatory comments. And these comments can be directed to trans people in general, or they can attack the individual themselves. So that could be the way that they look, the way that they are presenting or dressing on that particular day, and also the progress in which they have completed in their transition. So some people will present to you and you may not even know that they're transgender. And there will be a few people who are in the beginning stages of their transition, or have decided that once they get to a certain point or a certain place in their transition, that they do not want to go any further. And there are many things that people can do to transition to align more with the gender that they feel they are, but not everyone is going to present to you the same way. Another issue that transgender women are faced with is employers and staff getting a little too personal. So there are invasive questions that are often asked about the person's body, the changes they've made to their body, the way that they express their gender identity, and as well as their life outside of the workplace. And that could be, to elaborate more on outside of the workplace, there are assumptions, unfortunately, that society has about transgender women. And sometimes these assumptions and ideas of how transgender women live outside of work, and for lack of a better way of saying it, their extracurricular activities may vary from others. And sometimes we as a society have an idea that these activities are a bit risque and indulged in only by this group of people. And the final issue that transgender women face is harassment. So harassment can come in different forms, mostly sexual advances. Also, transgender women can endure physical and sexual violence. And when you hear that, you may think that that doesn't occur, and it doesn't occur at a high rate, but it does. This, like I said, it could be physical or it could be sexual. So Michael is going to explain to you how we can change these experiences that trans women are having and how you can integrate them into your workplace and business.
All right. Had a hard time finding the mute button there for a second. Oops. All right. Jackie, thank you very much. Jackie's part of the presentation is absolutely 100%, I mean, right on. And when we're talking about the reasons to hire transgender women, transgender people, we find that, you know, we could sit here and we could throw a lot of statistics your way. And we can talk about some of those in the next section a little bit. But really, when we do our trainings and we talk to people, we recognize that sharing some personal stories and personal anecdotes really brings some of the points that we're making home. So I'm going to share some of the things that I experienced and that I went through. And I had it good. Let me put it that way. I transitioned later in my life. I was 35. Ooh, man, that hurts to say that. All of a sudden, I was like, wait, that can't be right, but it is. I was 35 when I transitioned. Actually, 37. I'm sorry, I'm really going. So I was 37 when I started my transition. And what transitioning means is it's when a transgender person decides to alter their life in a way to make their identity, their internal gender identity that Jackie brought up, match their physical body. And so the transition takes time. It's money. It takes a lot of money. It's really an involved process. And one of the biggest fears that I had before I transitioned was the fear that I had of being rejected by my family and friends. And when I got through that, and it went very well for me, for a lot of trans people, it doesn't go so well. My next fear was, what am I going to do for a job? And at the time I had my real estate license. I still do, but I was practicing real estate. It was my full-time job. And when it got to the point where I had started to look different, where I had started to, my gender expression changed from really, male to the more feminine. And before I got to the point where I am now, that in-between phase that Jackie was talking about, which is really, really difficult for trans people, I want you all to try to remember what it was like going through puberty and the awkwardness as your body changed and, being in school or wherever you were in your life. And, these things are happening. Trans people go through that again. And so, but for older trans people, you're in a situation where you have to support yourself while that's all happening. And when you are met with a society or people that don't understand it and straight up reject it, there's a lot of rejection out there. There are people that just really just say, this isn't something that happens. This isn't real. People are making this up. People are, you're faking this. It's a phase. All of those old cliches actually, really get thrown a lot. One example is I had met with a couple who were selling their house, wanted to sell their house 2 years prior, and never heard from them again, had a great listing appointment. And then a year into my transition, I got an email and they said, listen, we never ended up selling, but we're ready now. Are you still doing real estate? We were so impressed with your presentation. We want to work with you. And I responded, yes, I'm still in real estate. I would love to work with you. There's something that I need to tell you. And I did disclose in that email to them that I was trans, that I was starting a transition, that I was the same person. I looked a bit different, had the same abilities, all of that. I mean, I actually looked for the email. I found it. And, it's like a 5-year-old email. And I hit send because I thought it was the best thing to do, to let them know up front rather than just saying yes and then showing up to the house to take pictures or to do, the listing documents and have a problem occur. I never heard back from them. Never. I hoped that it was a missed email, but then I took the time to send a follow-up email. And so, if you don't want to work for me or with me, I can make a referral, and just never, ever heard from them. Stories like that are very common for trans people. We're going to talk a little bit more in the next section about pay and all of that. But the discrimination that trans people face is profound, even when there are moments of support. And this isn't my story, but someone that I know who is a more mature trans person. They transitioned a long time ago, had a very, very well-paying job at a very famous, well-known company. They came out. The human resources department handled everything perfectly. And they were at a management level, and they self-described that they were the problem solver. People came to them to solve problems. She came out, years are going by, and she slowly noticed that the role that she played in that company was no longer the same role. That she went from being the person who solved problems to being the person who was expected to cut the birthday cake in the break room. That slowly but surely, that role that she had as a male started to be diminished, and almost, more into what some people would at the time considered a more female role in the workplace. So it's a double-edged sword. In one respect, she's being recognized as a female, and in the other respect, she's being treated as a female. And I'm sure that I don't have to express to you what women have faced in the workplace. You're all involved in business. You're with the chamber. I assume that you're leaders in your industry, and you have had to fight these personal battles. So for a trans person to experience that, is eye-opening to her. The other thing that really became an issue for me is, and I don't know how many of y'all are real estate agents. I have a feeling that there are a few out there. Real estate, it can be a little bit tricky sometimes. You get a call, you have to go, you're meeting at a house or somewhere with people you might not have met before, who you don't know, and you go into this environment, and it can be unsafe at times. So for me, I really started to panic based on some of the experiences that I had, that if I show up to a house or a listing appointment or a showing, if there were people that came that really had a problem with me and my existence, that it put my safety in danger. So what I did is I started to get out of real estate, and I was looking for jobs, and I was having a difficult time until I found Compass. And when I found Compass, that kind of brings me to the next point that I want to make. Now, Compass is the LGBTQ community center of Palm Beach County. It is a safe space. It is truly an ideal place for me to be working. Kirby read my bio a little bit earlier. I'm highly educated. I have a master's degree, and I was at a point in my life where I was in my, going into my 40s, and I didn't know what my future held employment-wise. And when I found Compass, through the gender support meetings that they were hosting at their building, I knew that I wanted to be a part of this place that was inclusive, that knew what I was going through, even though I was, at the time I was the second trans person who was hired, but I was amongst people that I knew understood me more than, that couple that never called me back for that listing appointment. And when I started to work at Compass, it became very clear to me very quickly that I was incredibly fortunate. And one of the things that really kind of developed for me was a really intense loyalty to Compass, because they had given me not only acceptance, but means to live my life and not worry where my next meal was coming from. Part of the reason why we've started the Transgender Economic Empowerment Program, which is a partnership with the Jewish Women Foundation of the Palm Beaches, is to give people this economic security. Because when you get into a situation where you make a life choice that precludes you it excludes you from gainful employment, you're earning potential plummets, all of those things. Sometimes a lot of trans women, you will find, have to turn to what some people would consider less desirable ways to make money. That includes sex work. It includes other ways to put that food on the table. So when you have a job and you have a person that is facing a future like that, they come into your company or your business and they are going to be phenomenal employees. That is one of the benefits of hiring someone. And I felt when we were going over this and we were developing this presentation, I was like, can I say that? Can I really come out and put that out there to say that these people are basically going to be so grateful that they're going to be good employees? And I started doing some research and I looked up, like, how to promote equality and all of these things just to make sure. And that's listed like on all of these websites. If you go, it says that trans people, LGBTQ people really are in a position where they know that having that job is security. And if they work for someone who is understanding of what they're going through, and really basically at the end of the day doesn't care. They want somebody that can do the job. And if you can do it, they treat you just like everybody else. That is a huge thing for people. And it also, the other benefit to your businesses is that it sends a loud signal to other people in the community and allies that you are a business that understands, that you are a business that accepts, you are a business that does not discriminate, you are a business who gets it, for lack of a better way to say it. You understand. You treat people fairly. So when I walk into a place and I see somebody like me working there, I immediately know I'm in a safe space. And I'm going to be honest with you, that business is going to get my business again and again and again and again. It's, again, I got a little bit nervous about saying this because I'm like, well, is this kind of like the token or the trophy, employee? Like you put them out on the floor and say, hey, everybody look at me. I'm woke. I know what's going on. I've hired, people who are different than other people. And, the answer to that is really, I think at the end of the day, no. When you hire someone who represents a community and a group of people who are marginalized, you are becoming part of the solution. And when you see and you have people who are patronizing your business or your services, the people that respect that are going to be loyal customers to you moving forward. So that's kind of, the reasons. Not only are you helping people who really suffer from discrimination in a different kind of way than some of the other discriminations that are more well known, you're really establishing your business as both a place that is accepting of all people. You broaden your pool of candidates, and you're also sending signals out to everybody else that you are part of the solution, not part of the problem. And that can be very beneficial to your business. Oh, sorry, I thought I was going to mute myself for that cough, but the button didn't work. I apologize, everyone. So moving on, we're going to talk about being inclusive. And some of these things are very practical. Some of them are a little bit more, highfalutin, so to speak. I don't know where highfalutin just came from, but that's the word I used. I'm sticking with it. Again, I do not think that I have to talk to anybody here about equal pay and the discrepancies between genders, and equal work gets equal pay. I don't know why this is such an issue in our society. I honestly, to the point where before I experienced it myself, I couldn't imagine that it was real. Like, how is it possible to have somebody doing a job or a service for a company and getting paid less than somebody else when everything else is equal except their gender? And for trans people, And this is the part where we get into statistics or talks. Some of this is anecdotal, but a lot of it is proven. The issue that we run into when we're trying to get statistics about transgender people is that in a large way, they don't exist at the moment in the volume and the extent that we would want to be able to make evidence-based decisions and arguments. The reason for that is when you have a statistic about somebody and their identity, the first barrier is that they need to tell who's ever keeping that statistic that they are trans or that they are LGBTQ. Some people don't disclose that. Some people don't want to disclose that. And let me say this, nobody has to disclose that. You know, your life, you live your life, you do your thing. So for statistics to be accurate, you need to tell somebody. And then the second barrier is that the people reporting the statistics, gathering the information, need to ask the right questions to get that information. But what we do know is that, again, transgender women, when they come out, their earning potential plummets and their hireability plummets. So the best thing that you can do, or one of the best things that you can do, is having policies where equal work gets equal pay. You know, qualifications, ability to do the job, and pay accordingly, not based on somebody's physical body, I guess is the best way to go about that. Equal roles and responsibilities. Remember that story I told you about my friend who had a very high level management position, came out, felt great. The company loved it. They accepted it. They had things in place. And this was years ago. So this is a really forward-thinking company. And then in practice over the years, their role was diminished. And instead of being the person that was called in again to solve the big problems, they were being relegated to literally cutting birthday cakes and, you know, organizing parties and things like that. There really, in my mind, shouldn't be barriers based on roles with gender as long as somebody is qualified. And I remember, you know, I also used to be involved with a union, and you know, back when I was younger, I worked at Walmart, and you know, one of the questions that they had on the hiring form is, can you lift a box over 30 pounds? You know, that was something that the job needed. I could do it, but most people can. You know, as long as somebody can fit, you know, and physically do the work and meets the qualifications, treat them like anybody else. I mean, and this is broad. I'm painting with a broad brush. Women and men should be treated equally and have access to the same roles. Then equal benefits. And I put here gender inclusive, not gender exclusive. And I steered away from the word gender based. There are certain aspects of benefits that on the surface might seem to favor one gender over another. One example could be maternity leave. At Compass, we've had a practice for a long time of giving parental leave, but we have adapted and we have even updated that policy to really reflect the current language. Parental leave includes everybody who's a parent. It doesn't exclude people who adopt. It does not exclude two fathers who may have a child. It doesn't exclude single fathers. It doesn't exclude single mothers. It doesn't exclude trans women. It is a recognition that people can have children and that they all deserve the same amount of time for those children to rear. And that's one example. You know, other examples can be with benefits are healthcare, trans-inclusive benefits. The access to healthcare in this country is still closely tied to our employment. And when you have trans people who, as I said before, are going through very expensive procedures and surgeries to get right in their own mind, to make their body match who they are inside, Those are very, very expensive, and they're cost prohibitive without insurance. So having policies or talking with your insurance company to make sure that there are policies in place that can help with those things for transgender people is a huge deal. And again, by doing this, you're going to attract people who are looking to work for you. If anybody has paid attention to Starbucks in the last several years, they have made an enormous commitment to the trans community. They have a benefits package that is just out of this world for trans people. It covers literally everything, like everything, new face, new body, I mean, anything. And it's just unbelievable. And what has happened, they have had a massive influx of people who identify as transgender working at their company. And they are really excellent employees. There's a Starbucks right next to our center, the downtown Lake Worth Starbucks. And there are many, many people who identify differently working at that Starbucks. And I know it's because of these benefit policies. So continuing, things jumped around on my screen. I'm sorry. Gender neutral policies and forms. This is a very practical thing. And again, it doesn't necessarily just go along traditional male-female lines. Intake forms, if you're asking for information, any of us that ever go to a doctor's office and, if they don't do a pre-thing online, you go in for your first appointment and they hand you that stack of papers and you just want to cry, and you're filling out information. There's personal things on there, name. And some people, as Jackie brought up before, some people never think twice about putting their name down. But what happens if you put your name down and it's not the name that's on your legal documents? What does that mean? What is that going to do? That's something that trans people have to face all the time. You can change that. You could literally put a space for legal name, and then you can put a place for nickname or name you are called. Some of those types of terms. The other big thing here is gender identifiers on forms. You go in and it says, sex, and some wise guy's always going to write yes, please. But like if you have just male and female options, it's exclusionary. You can put male, female. If you want to go basic, you can say other. Prefer not to say. I have seen forms where it says male, female, trans, male, trans, female, non-binary, other, prefer not to say. And you might not think that it's a big deal, but anybody coming in that needs your services, whether that's on a hiring form or if they're clients of yours and they identify like me, when I see that on a form, that is the first indication to me that I am in a business that understands and accepts who I am. And again, my loyalty skyrockets when I see things like that. The next thing is, if you have the ability, if you're in a business or you're in a place that is large enough to have separate male and female bathrooms, one of the things that you can do is create gender neutral restrooms. I know that this gets to be a hot button issue for a lot of people. I don't think we have time to go into all the nuances of this argument or discussion rather. Excuse me again. But the end of the day, I want to tell you something. In the United States of America, to this day, even after laws in North Carolina and stuff were passed where people had to use the bathroom that their gender marker on their birth certificate or their ID identified, those laws were said to be put in place to protect women and children from men who were going to hide in the bathrooms and do horrible things, right? I mean, that was the reasoning behind that. To this day in the United States, there has never been one recorded arrest, conviction, or sentencing of a trans person for assaulting anybody in a bathroom anywhere. It's not a problem. This was a solution in search of a problem, and that problem does not exist. If you do gender neutral restrooms at your place of business, again, you are taking a huge amount of anxiety for people like me out of the equation. if I'm in public and I need to use a restroom, it is my last resort. I know I'm not going to make it home or something else. I don't talk in the bathroom. I mean, if you think this is deep, my regular voice is deep. You know, when I'm not having a chest cold, I'm not going into the women's bathroom and, you know, talking on the phone. I'm not trying to create problems. I'm going in there to just, you know, get relief and get out of there. Gender neutral restrooms really make it equal. And people say, well, you know, men and women and all this. I'm just going to, and I always say to people that kind of push back on that, when you're at home, which bathroom do you use, the male bathroom or the female bathroom? And they're like, what? And I'm like, well, you know, like we all use the same situations. The only difference between a male and a female bathroom is urinals. And I don't think that those are really even necessary. So moving on, the other and the final thing to do, and you're doing it right now, is educate yourselves and your staff. Learn about these issues, learn about how you can be good allies, learn about, you know, the things that it will take to make sure that your business is an accepting, welcoming place. You are going to gain so much more business than any business you might lose from somebody that says they hired a trans person, I'm never going there again. It's you know, there are people like that out there, unfortunately, but there is a vast majority of people that are going to applaud and use your services. So if you, and in the future, if you want more information, do a training that covers in more depth the LGBTQ community, gender identity, sexual orientation, gender expression. And it really is a good training. If you have need for it or want to talk, our emails were at the beginning. And thank you to the Chamber for letting me say that. You know, at the end of the day, we need to support each other. I mean, it's really that simple. We need to support each other as human beings. That's the goal, is getting to that point where we don't see color, we don't see the things that separate us, we don't see different, you know, genders, we see people and abilities and, you know, human beings. So support each other. Are there any questions? I think that this is the time for questions and stuff. And if there's not, it's okay.
Yes, well, thank you so much. Both you and Jackie did a fantastic job. And I do want to remind everybody, this conversation is just getting started. It's not going anywhere. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Michael, Jackie, and I did see Julia on the call as well. So again, if you have a question, I do see we're getting lots of praises in the chat box. So if you want, you are more than welcome to turn on your microphone and ask the question. If you are comfortable, again, this is a safe place, no judgments. Or you can direct message any of us and we would be more than happy to help.
Yeah. And I just put our emails in the chat again, if you wanted to reach out and even set up a call. I mean, that's what we are. That's what we're about, is we're about educating. We're about spreading, you know, positivity and messages of equality and inclusion. So, and again, thank you so much to the Chamber for this opportunity.
Well, thank you
I
so
have
much.
a question.
Okay.
I would love to know about, my question is about pronouns, and I'm very open to being educated here, so excuse me if I make a misstep. Is it okay to ask somebody's pronouns? I worry about either having someone who might not be ready to tell me how to make the decision between misgendering themselves and coming out before they're ready. So that would be my question, is it just something you offer up to signal that you are an ally, or what's the best way to go about that?
So thank you. That's a great question. And I know in the interest of time, I could talk all day about that. But there are definitely certain things, and you hit the nail on the head. Ask. You know, there are some people that get a little bit nervous about asking. I kind of equate it to, you know, people asking maybe someone whom they feel and think appears to be pregnant. Oh, when is the baby due? Whoa. I'm not pregnant, you know, and like, so like, I get that sometimes people say, well, if you ask for a pronoun, then you're kind of saying you don't know. And if somebody, you know, isn't in the community or doesn't, you know, can get insulted, I think the chances of that are probably pretty small, to tell you the truth. And if somebody gets upset because you ask, there's a good chance they're going to get upset about something else somewhere else. So asking is the best way. There's a caveat to that. If you ask and they tell you, really, really, really try to make sure you use the pronouns that they've told you. If you don't, and you mess up or slip up, and look, it happens. Then don't make a big deal of it. Just correct yourself and continue on. The other tricks are, if you're having a hard time and you know their first name, just use their first name. You can do that all the time. And then maybe one of the easiest ways to do it is to use gender neutral pronouns, which in English are really are they, them, their pronouns. And people have an issue with that because they say, well, those are plural pronouns. That's for groups of people. They're actually not. And we all use they, them, their in the singular all the time, and you don't realize it. The quickest example I can give is if a friend or a family member calls you up, or somebody says, hey, I went to the doctor today. And you say, well, what did they say? Right? They comes out. Doctor is a gender neutral honorific. You cannot tell gender based on doctor. Male and female doctors are both called doctor. So you don't have that information by just hearing I went to the doctor today. So we default to a gender neutral pronoun, and people do it all the time. So that's something you can do as well. And it doesn't sound weird. Like, really, honestly, if you're in a conversation, you're talking to somebody about somebody that's there, and you need to use a pronoun, and you just say, oh, they were looking for, it's not an issue. It's just, it hits right away. I do have in my name there any pronouns. Kelly Fennelly was telling a story before this started about how this whole thing started to really pick up steam. And that was, she saw that somebody had listed their pronouns under their email signature. You can do that. It's an indication to people, and as an ally, it's normalizing the fact that not everybody's pronouns are very easy to figure out. And I hope that answers the question. I know that we have some time, but those are some tips and tricks, and you're absolutely spot on. Ask.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. We do have a few questions in the chat. Michael, are you able to see those?
Yeah. So give me a second. Use gender on your Zoom name. Okay. So the reason I have any pronouns is, and I appreciate people saying like they don't want to offend anybody. I have any pronouns because at an early point in my transition, I made the decision that I wasn't going to delineate male or female, because in my experience, I mean, you hear my voice. I get this all the time. I look a certain way. I'll go up, and it happens when I'm shopping usually. I'll go to the Publix checkout, and they'll say, did you find everything you're looking for today, ma'am? And I'll say, yes, I did. Thank you. We'll have a very pleasant conversation. On my way out the door, they're like, have a good day, sir. You know, there's a switch there. And that switch occurs, you know, I think it's because of my voice. And I don't think that there's disrespect there. There are people that use pronouns to attack. You know, they will go after people. And trans people, it is a validating thing to have the correct pronouns used. So to every extent that you can, try to learn what pronouns that person uses and use them. You see on Zooms, again, like when I put the pronouns, any pronouns on my name, it's just a thing, you know, Rudy, I'm going to call you out because I see that you got them there too. You know, it's just normalizing the conversation. It's making sure that people don't assume a certain thing. It's the same thing as putting it in my email signature. When I have a conversation with somebody, I don't say, oh, hi, my name's Michael, and I don't list off my pronouns, but there are people that do. And, you know, it's about getting into that place where you are normalizing the discussion about pronouns, again, because they're not always really easy to not everybody goes by he, she in the way that you think that they might. Jackie, did you want to add anything to that? Did I miss anything in the pronoun discussion?
No. The only thing that I can add is an example of how I use it in practice. So we didn't really talk about or my work history, but I am a nurse. And in my field of work, I encounter a lot of patients that are going through their transition, have transitioned, but have not changed their name. And whenever I encounter these patients, I always ask them, I pull them to the side and I ask them, what pronouns can I use for you? What name would you prefer to be called? And I never receive negativity back from that. And they're always a bit more open to me because I've recognized that there may be a difference and I've opened them up to be able to express themselves the way that they want to be expressed.
Thank you, Jackie. And Kirby, do we have time for some of these other questions, or should I maybe answer them in an email, send them to you, and you can?
Absolutely. We can take maybe 4 more minutes on the questions, and then I do want to get to some self-introductions.
Absolutely. So I see, do you have any advice on how to approach gender neutral bathrooms when a city requires labels according to binary sex? Do you mind clarifying which city? Because I know that West Palm Beach has made a commitment to changing that in their in the city-owned buildings and stuff, gender neutral bathrooms. They've actually already converted several bathrooms over. I don't know what to do there. I mean, if it's a requirement, I guess you got to have those signs there. You don't want fines or you don't want anything happening there. But you could add signs of your own above it, I would imagine. I love I've seen all kinds of signs. My favorite one has the traditional male, silhouette picture, the female silhouette picture. Then I think there's a mermaid, there's a unicorn, an alien, and it just says something like, we don't care, just wash your hands, like things like that. Like you can have fun with it. So if there's a requirement to make a delineation, if there's a requirement to have a bathroom with a urinal in it, and there's no other requirement that you can put your own information there, that might be one way to handle it. I know probably some others.
Another way that you could take care of that or address that is to educate your staff and empower your staff to be able to use whichever bathroom they're comfortable with. And you keep your signage that's required by the city, and that way you don't have to make any changes, but people are able to use the bathroom that they're most comfortable with. And that takes care of that without having to make any changes.
Yeah. And then I see, thank you, Jackie. That's a really good point. When it comes to further educating ourselves regarding the trans community, are there any pieces of literature that you would recommend? There are bazillions out there, I think, and it's getting, you can find a lot of stuff. I'm ashamed to say it, I don't have any books or anything that I would particularly have enjoyed or read, as I've experienced. I'm more of, and Jackie's probably going to roll her eyes, I'm more of the movie person. There are some amazing documentaries out there, and they're available on a lot of the streaming services. One of them is the Katie Couric gender discussion, and that's a couple of years old. I forget what the title of that was called. There's an amazing National Geographic periodical that was all about gender. If you can find that, there are probably online versions of that on like Amazon, like Kindle probably. Netflix has some really interesting documentaries. The one that is really very interesting, and again, it has to do with movies, is called Disclosure. It's hosted by Laverne Cox, and it is a discussion about trans people and their portrayal in the media. And one of the most interesting things about that is that you learn that one of the earliest things that was ever filmed was a trans person. And so it talks about our representation, and basically in a negative light. We always tend to be the villains in TV shows and stuff, like the whodunit, and the big reveal is that the woman turned out to be a man or something. And it's just like, so there are things like that. Jackie, do you have anything to add? And I know that we need to do the introductions, but anything that you can think of?
No.
I'll come up with some stuff. I'll send it to Kirby. And I wish that my coworker, Adrian, who is, she is very well versed in books and things, but there's a lot out there. I might stay away from anything written by Caitlyn Jenner, but other than that, go have fun.
Okay, and we do have one more question that I got is, if a trans wants to be called not by their birth name, do they have difficulty changing it on their legal ID or like a male to female name?
Mhm. Yeah, believe it or not, gender markers in Florida on like a driver's license, it's really relatively easy to change. You need a note from the doctor who's prescribing your care, your HRT, your surgeries. You go to the DMV with that note and they change it. It's super simple. Name changes are very different, and there are two major barriers to name changes. Well, there are two things that the government requires you to prove. One, that you're not running away from debt, and two, that you're not running away from the law. And it is a little bit more of an expensive process. It runs in the hundreds of dollars in a lot of cases. So there are difficulties for a lot of trans people who are seeking that service. If you know anyone that needs help with that, Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County is a great resource. Jackie, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you so much. And again, anybody, if you did not get your question answered, or if you would like any more information, please feel free to reach out to Michael, Jackie, or myself, and I will reach out to them and do whatever I can to help. I do want to get into some self-introductions. We might go a few minutes over time, hopefully not much. If we could just go by and say your name and your company and your title. That way we can get through this and know who you are. So I am going to start with Joan.
Okay, my name is Joan Quittner. I'm a director of Legal Shield and ID Shield, and I'm also an ambassador with the Chamber, and this was a fantastic presentation. Really, really very informative. Coming out of HR, I can understand all of the problems. Thank you.
Thanks, Joan. Sharon.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sharon Hoffman, sales manager with Sunfest, and I echo Joan. It was awesome. Thank you, guys. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sharon. Mary.
Well, hi, my name is Mary Madsen. I'm the Grants and Sponsorships Manager at the Flagler Museum. We also had our Member and Visitor Services Director on the call, but she does not have audio, so I am speaking for us. But thank you so much for this presentation. It was wonderful.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Simone.
Hello, I am Dr. Simone from Health Max Center here in Palm Beach Gardens, and I am a chiropractor. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for joining us. Haley.
Hi there, my name is Haley. I work in the marketing department with ServPro of West Palm Beach. And I, along with everybody else, definitely enjoyed the presentation. So thank you for all this.
All right, well, thank you for joining. Judy.
Good morning, everyone. And I agree, great presentation. I'm Judy Dunn, Director of Business Services with CareerSource Palm Beach County.
All right, well, thank you so much for being with us. I'm going to go to Carrie. Oh, Carrie, your microphone's not working. It says you're unmuted.
We called in.
There we go.
We called in because the computer wasn't working. Good morning, everyone. I'm the Director of Community Partnerships and Strategic Initiatives at CareerSource Palm Beach County. And my counterpart here, I'm Lisa Galan. I'm the Human Resources Manager here at CareerSource Palm Beach County. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. So informative. What a session today. Excellent.
Well, thank you so much for joining. And Rudolph, he said his microphone is not working, so I'm going to introduce him real quick. It's Rudy Galindo, Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation for the City of West Palm Beach. So thank you for joining us today. Shamiran, and I'm sorry if I said that wrong. Oh, your microphone's not working. I do see that you're unmuted. That is day to day here at the Chamber.
How about now?
That's better.
Is better? Okay. Shamiran So I actually own a local math learning center, West Palm Beach, Mathnasium. And yeah, I'll just echo everyone else. This was really, really helpful. So thank you for doing this.
Well, thank you so much for joining. Morgan. Oh, you are muted.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Morgan Biggs, and I am the manager of communications and website for Career Source Palm Beach County. And this is actually my first session on the chamber. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your presentation.
Well, thank you. We were so happy to have you join us. I'm going to go to Lynn.
I think Lynn also indicated in the chat that her mic,
Yes,
her
she
mic
did.
wasn't working.
All right, so I will read this. It's Lynn Rosario, Business Development Specialist at Velocity Community Credit Union. And thank you for the presentation, very informative. Sorry, my screen keeps changing. Pamela.
Please, I apologize. I've been working outside. I didn't want to show what I was looking like this morning, but I am the founder of the West Palm Beach Mental Health Coalition, where I bring information to the underserved communities about various aspects of mental health. This is the second time that I have heard Michael speak. And quite frankly, when I saw that he was on this, I had to pull it up because he's always been opening, enlightening on various topics. And I do appreciate him.
All right, well, thank you for joining. Verna, and I do believe Verna has something she would like to offer the group.
Good morning, everyone. And yes, it was a great and fabulous presentation. I did enjoy it and I learned a lot from it. So I'm a student, a doctoral student at Barry University, and I am really trying to get a couple volunteers or just one or two who are female entrepreneurs, maybe in business about 5 years or more, to do a study based off of just female entrepreneurship, gender equality, and corporate business. Now, the study just aimed to identify the performance opportunity to determine how far the organization has come to reach its goal and how far it still needs to go. So I would really appreciate if I can get one or two volunteers to help me with this study so I can be successful in my doctorate.
All right, and I do see that your contact information is in the chat, so please, anybody, Verna, her comment is in the chat to everybody, so if you are interested in that, please feel free to reach out. I think I got everybody. Please speak up now if I missed you. Again, I'm sorry, my screen changes every time somebody turns on their microphone. So, all right, Kelly.
Okay, thank you. I'm Kelly Fennelly, Membership Director at the Chamber of Commerce here. I think I know most of you at least, although we have a couple of new folks here from Career Source, so thank you for joining us. Michael and Jackie, thank you so much. This is such an important discussion. And I really do think at the Chamber of Commerce, as we were talking earlier before you guys came into the room, it's so important that we, really represent the community that we're serving. And if we don't have these kinds of discussions, then we're not. So I appreciate everybody being here and helping us with this. And I want to talk to you guys, Michael and Jackie, a little bit more about the training. I think maybe that's something that we would like to do here at the Chamber. So let's talk about that. And then maybe you guys can all join us when we do that, right? Okay. Thank you, Kirby. You did an awesome job this morning.
Well, thank you. And again, our next meeting will be on April 8th from 9 to 10 a.m. So please feel free to join up and register online for that. And again, please reach out if you have any questions, and we would be so happy to help you. And I want to wish everybody a happy and healthy rest of your day. Please have just an amazing day. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Jackie. Bye.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Kirby. Did you want to talk about that now or like?
Actually, I have to jump off, so we will follow up with you. I'm definitely interested in that. Awesome. Thank you so much. Truly.
Thank you for the
opportunity.
Bye.
Thank you, Kelly and Kirby.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.